But reason and evidence does not hold sway. Just look at the skeptic community and their views on race and IQ.
I'm not a scientist, I'm not an anthropologist, etc. And I would so much prefer for actual scientists to talk about this stuff.
Race realism is kind of just common sense.
Thank you, because your lecture touched my genes, and I know the genes of everyone in here.
I'm just trying to understand the nature of reality. As a comment I read the other day pointed out, people confuse scientific findings with a political or social agenda.
RK selection theory, which relates originally to animal to mammalian life, but it sheds interesting light on human dynamics.
But of course, they're all afraid of losing their job, they're afraid of Antifa coming and murdering their family or whatever.
The people who deny race realism, or the fact that IQ varies depending on race or background, they're just being timid PC pussies.
And broadly speaking, right-wing is K-type and left-wing is R-type.
It might be a lot if we're talking about a group that seems naturally inclined to socialism like Hispanics do, but, it's nothing.
Denial, 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 obfuscate, obfuscate, obfuscate. And when they finally lose the debate, they say, well, but let's say that it's true. What does it matter?
Have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Here's a little visualization. In summary, it states that the more a person spends talking about a topic that they know progressively less about, the more likely they are to make fools out of themselves, as a consequence of knowing progressively less about the topic. I think this law very well applies here for the people that we are about to cover in this video. Around 2 months ago, I announced on Twitter that I would be looking deeper into alt-right claims of race realism, that I was seeking out the opinions of professionals in an attempt to first and foremost educate myself, and I succeeded by managing to get the attention and valuable help of a neurologist and a geneticist. One of them also happens to be on YouTube. I'm mentioning this because, funny enough, the alt-right reaction to that was to proclaim that asking biologists to explain biology is supposedly an appeal to authority fallacy, but far more importantly because this video and upcoming videos would have been close to impossible without the dedication and help of that woman and man, both of them having spent considerable time of their lives dedicated to their academic profession.
I'm not a scientist, I'm not an anthropologist, etc. And I would so much prefer for actual scientists to talk about this stuff. But of course, they're all afraid of losing their job, they're afraid of Antifa coming and murdering their family or whatever. So they don't feel that they're at liberty to actually talk about these topics. Even though the science is out there, the science has been done.
One of the first things the geneticist told me was that she had spent a considerable time of her career doing research on genes that are resistant to genetically inherited diseases, and that in her words, Schwachsinn, which means nonsense, such as race realism, is simply a waste of extremely valuable and precious time and resources in her profession. As much as some of you might be bored by this introduction, I feel obliged to doing it. This video and other projects in the works would have been impossible without these two people. I'm a mere high school dropout who may have gotten himself through night school into university, but I would not have the learning patience that it would require to study and succeed academically in the hard natural sciences such as chemistry, biology and physics. Both of you have often not had the time to answer questions I had, because both of you were very busy with work in your academic field, and still both of you have found the time on occasion to patiently listen to my questions and to respond not only in detail but in a way that gave a layman like me a good understanding of the matter. I would like to thank you with a deep felt sincerity and awe, not only at the end but at the beginning of this video, for sacrificing some of your valuable time for me. I would like to thank the geneticist for actually even giving me one of her own books from her time as a student during the 1980s so I could get a better understanding of Darwinian development of cognitive ability, a topic that we will be covering in a later video. And I would like to thank the neurologist for the calls in which you patiently explained to me matters that I often had little initial understanding of. A heartfelt and sincere thank you to both of you. Let us start with something simple, RK selection. It is one of the favorite topics of the alt-right and several far-right commentators. You will find many a video on the topic of RK selection from many, ranging from the conservative commentator Bill Whittle, a 3-hour series by Stefan Molyneux, a live stream by Tara McCarthy, the cringy buffoon Davis Orini made a video on this, Red Ice TV had a podcast with the laughing stock that is Matt Forney on the evolutionary psychology behind politics, and it's it's one of the favorite topics of the alt-right YouTuber Millennial Woes. I believe the best way to illustrate what RK selection is with the translation of the German term for it, Fortpflanzungsstrategie, which means strategy of sexual reproduction, and with these graphs. Take a very good look at these graphs and their coordinate system. The x-axis represents percentage of maximum lifespan, the y-axis represents the number of surviving offspring. Within this graph, you will see 5 different strategies of reproduction, with there being 2 extremes, human beings and the thistle. Human beings are K-types, the thistle is an R-type. Human beings have few offspring, however their reproductive strategy includes considerable time for nurturing that offspring, thereby ensuring that the majority of that offspring survives. Thistles have a lot of offspring, however their reproductive strategy involves no nurturing by the parents, and with a strategy of safety in numbers, the majority of the offspring dies within a short time span. All species of animals can be found within these graphs, with the exception of sterile hybrids such as the mule, and those graphs are all trending towards either one of those extremes, with bird species often finding themselves within the middle. The 2 different strategies of R-type and K-type in essence differentiate by R-type having the sexual reproductive strategy and sex organs for high quantity of offspring, with however no biological mechanism for nurturing, and K-types lacking the reproductive and sex organs for high quantity of offspring, in favor however of nurturing the offspring that they produce. Elephants lack reproductive and sex organs for plentiful offspring in a single pregnancy, however spend considerable time nurturing their offspring, hence K-type. Frogs have reproductive and sexual organs for plentiful offspring, however spend less time with nurturing that offspring, hence R-type. K-types require for their reproductive strategy to inherit organs and behavioral patterns that allow them to convert energy into that nurturing process, wombs, pouches, milk production, possibly even socialization. A side effect is also that K-types give birth to offspring that is not fully mature and hence requires nurturing. It is important to note that this sexual reproductive strategy didn't evolve as a mere behavior by itself, but evolved as a necessity due to the sexual reproductive organs. R-types require no such thing. They lay eggs and nurture them until they hatch, albeit with the exception of some shark species that give birth to living young, but then still spend little to no time at all with their offspring. However, it is required that the offspring has the immediate inherited capacity to fend for itself and to survive by itself without nurture from its parents, and be an independent animal at birth in most examples. Black mambas and praying mantis, for example, would very well cannibalize their own young after hatching. Hence, these 2 species are born capable of fending for themselves. In essence, the further you trend towards the extreme of the R-type, the more capable of fending for itself the offspring is required to be. As with the K-type, the R-type sexual reproductive strategy didn't evolve as a behavior by itself, but evolved because of the evolved sexual reproductive organs that consequently necessitate such a strategy. It is important to underline the following. These 2 categories are cemented, set in stone, biological categories, with no leeway or room for overlap. Sexual reproduction is after all how species are differentiated from each other within the science of biology. Changing from R-type to K-type is impossible, since it would be the equivalent of just randomly turning from one animal species into another. However, looking at this graph must have had a rather seductive allure to our dear friends at the alt-right and far-right. Hey, could it be that this applies to human beings, that we can apply the RK selection theory within the human species? Could it be that the blacks, low IQ individuals, the poor and other social groups are biologically primed to dumping as many children as possible into the world without any nurture due to their inherent nature? Let's go and make up a new word. Let's call it RK psychology, so we can differentiate ourselves from biology and escape the rigorous process of the critical academic inquiry by actual biologists. And maybe we can assign political conviction to our new psychological theory as well. Quote, here in the R strategy, we see the origins of the liberals' tendencies towards conflict avoidance, from oppositions to free market capitalism to pacifism to demands that all citizens disarm so as to avoid any chance of conflict and competition. And let's assign supposed animal traits within our new psychological theory. The 5 traits of R-selected animals: risk aversion, promiscuity, low investment and or single parenting with lots of kids, early sexualization of offspring compared to length of lifespan, and finally, loyalty to family over the tribe. The 5 traits of K-selected animals: competition proficiency, pair bonding, high investment in fewer offspring with dual parenting, late sexual maturation of offspring, and finally, equal loyalty to the family and the tribe. Can someone explain to me how loyalty to a tribe is, for example, an animal trait? And I cite these claims from two sources mainly. The Anonymous Conservative, which is the source used apparently by Tara McCarthy, Davis Arini and Bill Whittle. The other source is the blog truthjustice.net, an alt-right blog, which seems to be the source of Millennial Woes and Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux having literally copied the list of supposed animal traits, such as promiscuity, yet he proceeds not to call them animal traits. And from there, the childish and baseless speculations continue to go on. Maybe the welfare state supports R-type people. Political debate might be pointless since it's all biologically inherited. Maybe the refugees and migrants coming to Europe are R-types, and maybe the Europeans accepting them are R-types. Maybe you are an R-type and can aspire to be a K-type like Millennial Woes. Well, why is it that I do not find a single scientific paper on this amazing theory of RK-type evolutionary psychology that the alt-right proclaims to have found, and which supposedly explains political, intellectual and racial differences on an evolutionary basis? Why is it that the only end source I find are the book by Anonymous Conservative and an alt-right blog? Well, because all this talk about the application of the RK selection theory within the human species amongst individuals is nothing short of worthless, self-aggrandizing, pathetic and extraordinarily stupid pseudoscientific gibberish. Why sexual reproduction? More precisely, sexual reproductive organs. Sexual reproduction is not merely dependent upon specific sexual behavior, but the developed sexual organs, which consequently make an R or K reproduction strategy a necessity. It is dependent upon the embryonic development process after conception. It is dependent upon very specific behavioral patterns of offspring that are not varying within a species, but between species. You can't separate a sexual reproduction strategy from its accompanying sexual organs and the required physiology of the species that has evolved to have either the R or K sexual reproduction strategy. And you cannot separate a species from the sexual reproductive strategy that it has evolved to have. Human beings are K-types, not because of some dreamt up nonsensical notion that there is a K-type psychology, no, but because our bodies have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to do so. Our brains have, and most importantly, our sexual organs are developed for this purpose as well. A female human pregnancy on average lasts for 9 months. A female woman's sexual reproductive organs have not evolved to give birth to dozens, let alone hundreds or even thousands of offspring at the end of a single pregnancy. And lest we forget, we can observe that all humans are K-types by the simple fact that if you abandon a newborn human infant and leave it completely to fend for itself alone, it will die. The human biological reproductive process doesn't allow us to simply dump our newborns and expect them to naturally survive on their own. It takes the human infant more than a year to learn to walk. It takes considerable time and effort of parental nurturing to raise a child into a state where it can take care of itself independently. More importantly, a human infant child needs mother's milk. There's a reason why you find lactating breasts amongst K-type species, because they are an inherent and important part of the K-type sexual reproduction strategy. Everything about the human being's physiology, the way his body has evolved over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, clearly and without a shadow of a doubt, makes it clear the human being's reproductive strategy is K-type. More importantly, to which we will get back to later, the K-type sexual reproduction strategy is distinctively mammalian. Compare that to an R-type like the common European trout. Its reproduction happens through the trout swimming upriver to mate. The male does not remain with the female. The pregnancy is very short, with the female then laying up to 10,000 eggs that are covered in sand and small stones and then abandoned. Both the female and male return downstream. Several hundred, if not thousands of eggs become prey to other animals. When the small trout hatch, they are extremely vulnerable to other prey animals, however capable of feeding themselves and fending for themselves throughout the process of growing into sexual maturity. The biological reproductive strategy is without a doubt R-type and distinctively not mammalian. For human beings to be R-type in reproductive strategy, they would have to be completely different in physiology and evolved with completely different reproductive behaviors. An R-type female human being would have a womb able to host dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of offspring within a single pregnancy. To both the R-type male and the R-type female human, the concept of a relationship is something that they lack the cognitive ability to even understand. and both would in most likelihood go separate ways right after mating. The R-type female human being would have no breasts, since nurturing offspring would not be necessary. The pregnancy of the R-type female human would only last for 2 weeks, since pregnancies are usually rather short with R-types. The R-type female human would be ready to conceive another batch of offspring mere weeks after she laid her eggs, and yes, the R-type human female would most likely lay eggs because giving birth to living young is a rare exception amongst R-type species. The R-type human female would also abandon those eggs after giving birth, and the R-type human offspring would hatch capable of walking and fending for themselves entirely by themselves. This within itself should illustrate perfectly well the pure ridiculousness of the idea the alt-right and its associates are proposing here, because this creature I described wouldn't even be human, and more importantly, which some of you may have already noticed, it would not even be a mammal anymore. The capacity to give birth to living young is a specifically mammalian trait, with few exceptions such as the Australian platypus. The platypus lays eggs, but also engages in an extensive nurturing process associated with K-type sexual reproduction strategy. The platypus is a K-type mammal, however one that through its isolation in Australia over hundreds of millions of years is regarded to be a living fossil from a time when mammals still laid eggs. K-type nurturing of offspring is a significant step undertaken in the evolution of mammals that differentiates them from other animal classes such as reptiles and fish. 220 million years ago, within the Triassic period, we find the first ancestor of the mammalian species called cynodonts, who were some of the first to give birth to living young and had a consequent long period of nurture. The K-type reproduction strategy is a distinctively mammalian strategy that has evolved over the course of 220 million years. And what does the alt-right make of all of this? What do they do with hundreds of millions of years of evolution and clearly defined biological classifications? They strip sexual reproductive strategies of its single most important component, the sexual reproductive organs, and proclaim that human beings apparently haven't evolved this reproductive strategy over the course of several millions of years, but switch in between R and K-type in accordance to a biologically inherited political alignment or skin pigment, as if being liberal or black makes you have sex like a reptile, fish, or amphibian. In essence, the alt-right treats biology like regressive social justice morons treat biology as well. They strip it of its classifications and biological realities and proclaim that sexual organs are an irrelevance. This is bullshit on a spectacular level. It is sociological determinism masquerading as biological determinism whilst completely ignoring actual biology. Our sexual reproduction strategy as a species, no, not just as a species, but as a class of animals, as mammals, is biologically determined. We are all K-types. Long pregnancy, giving birth to living young, nurturing our offspring, and our offspring's inability to fend for itself during its infancy clearly and without a doubt underlines that. Deadbeat fathers, multiple sexual partners, and other such decisions made by individual human beings do not change that biological reality. No matter if a person abandons their child with its mother or father, the biological reality is that we as a species, through millions of years of evolution, are meant to care for and nurture our offspring. And yet, Stefan Molyneux, Bill Whittle, Millennial Woes, McCarthy and the rest of the gang proclaim that apparently it is within human biology to simply, at a whim, ignore 220 million years of evolution that shaped our sexual organs and our consequent sexual reproductive strategies, to then go ahead and apparently form a completely new sexual reproductive strategy and to breed like reptiles. All of this is simply laughable. People who do not follow Stefan Molyneux's political line of thought, according to his delusions copied from an alt-right blog, sexually reproduce like reptiles without actually having the reproductive organs of a reptile. Molyneux proclaims in his video that human beings started out as R-types and evolved to be K-types, which is utter nonsense, not only because humans evolved from mammals and hence are K-types anyway, but because sexual reproduction is the measurement by which biologists classify species. If humans supposedly started out as R-typed, which they didn't anyway since they are mammals, and then evolved into K-types, those new K-type humans would no longer be considered to be humans, but a different different species because they have a different strategy of sexual reproduction. Molyneux builds this entire video viewed by almost 200,000 people on the basis of a falsehood, in essence distorting biology and giving his audience a completely skewed and false image of sexual reproductive strategies and the Darwinian model itself. Most ridiculous of all within all of this has to be millennial woes. Besides assigning a sexual reproductive strategy that has evolved over millions of years and which doesn't exist amongst the mammalian species and is more commonly found amongst reptiles and fish, willy-nilly to migrants, refugees and whatever other group of people just comes to his mind, the crown of stupidity must be that he thinks he is an aspiring K-type.
Within these nationalist circles, you get guys who are not naturally K-types. Indeed, I'm one of them, to be honest, but that's another story. I'll talk about specifically a certain type of guy who gets involved in nationalism. And, well, it's not just one type, but they have this thing in common, which is that they weren't born K-types. They weren't born steady, practical, thinking long-term, and so on. But they, at some point, adopted or tried to adopt it, resolved to develop those qualities.
He believes he can change his mammalian biological sexual reproduction strategy and presumably the sexual reproduction organs that have all evolved over the course of 220 million years by his ancestors through the power of sheer will. Let's put this into reality for him, shall we? Because in essence what he is saying is, hey guys, my girlfriend and I currently sexually reproduce and have the sexual reproduction strategy and organs of a fish. And I want to evolve the sexual reproduction strategy and sexual reproduction organs. Oh wait, I think I still have my human sexual reproduction organs because I just ignore the scientific fact that sexual reproduction strategies evolve as a consequence of sexual reproduction organs. But anyway, I want to evolve the sexual reproduction strategy of an elephant within 0 generations. Yes, 0 generations, since he wants to aspire to, well, evolve within the Darwinian model himself into a completely different biological sexual reproduction strategy. This shit is even more absurd than notions of there being hundreds of different genders. This is pure nonsense. First off, sexual organs and sexual reproduction strategies can't be separated. Sexual organs evolved over millions of years and consequently have evolved the required sexual reproductive strategies. Second, sexual reproduction is the criteria by which biologists classify and separate different species. And more importantly here, sexual reproductive strategies differ between animal classes, with K-type reproduction being distinctively mammalian. In essence, changing your sexual reproductive strategy from R-type to K-type or vice versa is to demand to have the sex organs of a completely different species in a completely different animal class, such as fish or reptiles. Basically, you are asking to change your supposed fish cock or lizard vagina into a mammalian sexual organ. Third, evolution requires offspring. You want to evolve over the course of 0 generations? That very concept is in complete and utter denial of the theory of evolution itself. You cannot evolve your sex organs and your sexual reproduction strategy yourself into something completely different to consequently turn yourself into what would be a different species. If such a thing were to happen, it would disprove evolution. Third, your sexual reproductive strategy is K-type, because the sexual reproduction strategy of the entire human species is K-type, and because mammals are K-type. You depended on the nurturing of your parents as an infant. That makes you a K-type. You were not capable of sustaining yourself directly after birth. Hence, you are K-type. This entire shtick you are playing here is sociological determinism masquerading as biological determinism. What is happening here is not a group of brave public speakers voyaging where science doesn't dare to go out of fear of social repercussion. This is not a group of pioneers giving us some hidden knowledge. This is not some graciously given red pill. This is a group of people proudly standing on a podium to openly, loudly and proudly proclaim to the world, hey there, I am too dumb to understand sexual reproduction. What lessons do we learn out of all of this? Well, it is not an appeal to authority fallacy to ask a biologist to explain biology. Never, ever presume that you are an expert on matters of natural science because you read some shoddy, silly blog. And the more you talk about something you know progressively less about, the more likely you are to make a damned fool out of yourself. This is not an argument, it's biology. RK selection is a clearly defined biological concept, a theory, and I know already that some dim-witted and desperate individuals will claim, hey, we are only using RK selection as a metaphor. To which I can only reply that this just makes you even less scientific, since you can't just merely grab terms with meanings attached to them and reassign a new meaning. RK selection can only be observed between species and not between individuals within a species. That would contradict our fundamental understanding of biology, since it contradicts our understanding of sexual reproduction. If you claim that RK reproduction occurs between individuals within one species, you will have to forward empirical data to prove this, to show us how human beings suddenly evolved reptilian R-type reproductive strategies, behavior patterns, as well as sexual organs. In the end, I would like to reiterate my sincere gratitude to two people who so graciously sacrificed some of their time over the course of 2 months to educate me. I do not know how to thank one of them here, since she has no social media presence besides the YouTube account with which she is subscribed to me. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your book. The other one, as some of you may have noticed, is the Doktorand, a German YouTuber, one of the leaders of the German science, rational thought, and generally just anti-bullshit YouTube communities, besides also being an accomplished academic and neurologist. 1,000 thanks to you, and I hope that every single one of my German-speaking subscribers will go and subscribe to your channel. In the next video, I will explain why race realism itself, as the alt-right argues for on supposed scientific grounds of genetics, is absolute bullshit. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow and share on Twitter, maybe even become a patron, or make a one-time donation via PayPal. Links to my PayPal, Patreon, and Twitter will be in the description.